I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. See if we'll do the roll call, please.
Scholl?
Here.
McIntyre? Here. DeCook?
Here, we have a quorum. Are there any agenda deletions or corrections? Only one I see is that the claims number was tweaked nominally, and we'll get to that in A. All right, seeing none. Item number 1 is a consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda will be enacted by one motion. A, claims. We have a claims number of $1,805,821.23. We have one fringe in the amount of $35.45. B, minutes to approve. Special meeting, October 30th, 2020. Regular meeting, November 4, 2020. C, approve removal from payroll. Carrie Feldman, Legal Assistant, Attorney's Office, effective November the 6th, 2020. D, approve removal from payroll. Stephen Wallace, IT Specialist, Information Technologies Office, effective 10/9/2020. E, approve step increase for Brian Lester, EO, Weed Brush, Secondary Roads, effective November 25, 2020. F, approve step increase for Richard Boatwright, MG2, Secondary Roads, effective November 1st, 2020. G, approve 6-month wage increase for Michael Hagan, BC Foreman, Secondary Roads, effective December 1, 2020. H, approve 6-month wage increase for Cameron Glover, RMT1, Secondary Roads, effective December 1, 2020. I, approve 6-month wage increase for Jacob Gardner, RMT1, Secondary Roads, effective November 19, 2020. J, approve 6-month wage increase for Bradley Eggenberger, RMT1, Secondary Roads, effective November 19, 2020. K, approve 6-month wage increase for Matthew Drish, EO2, Secondary Roads, effective December 2, 2020. L, approve hire Deborah Taylor, Clerk, Recorder's Office, effective November 16, 2020. M, approve job transfer for Melanie McCombs to Legal Assistant, Attorney's Office, effective November 30th, 2020. N, approve job transfer for Jean Crooks to Legal Assistant, Attorney's Office, effective November 30, 2020. O, set public hearing for December 15, 2020 at 6:25 p.m. for a hearing on the proposed plans, specs, form of contract, and estimated total cost of Warren County Justice Center food service equipment. And P, approve 6-month wage increase for Don Jackson, meal site cook, nutrition, effective November 12, 2020.
I would move the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Tracy?
Scholl?
Aye.
McIntyre? Aye. DeCook?
Aye, motion carries. Number 2 on the agenda tonight is consider change order on 911 communication project for Motorola with possible action. I assume Mr. McCausland will be speaking on this one.
Bringing this forward to you, this is a change order to reprogram all of the law enforcement radios for Warren County, which would include Carlisle Police, Indianola Police, and the Warren County Sheriff's Office. All of those radios were programmed 2 years ago prior to approving the current radio project. So the programming, we really didn't have a scheme on how we were going to do it. So by doing this programming, it'll bring all the law enforcement agencies up to the current specs, the current options that all the fire departments have on their radios. And it was for $9,335.64 to do all of them within the county.
Thank you, Doug. Are there any questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I would move, I'm gonna get my bearings here. Let's see, okay, yeah, I would move the change order on the 9/11 communications project for $9,335.64.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Schultz.
Aye.
McIntyre. Aye. DeCook.
Aye, motion carries. Number 4 is a public hearing set for 6:20 PM. I have 6:05 PM, so we are a little early on those two. So 3 and 4, we're gonna, or 6:10. Oh, that's the first one. We've got a few minutes before we get to 6:10. So let's do action item number 5, which is approve temporary easements for project number TAPU-CO91, parens 131-81-91 with possible action.
So these are 34 temporary easements total. This is for the sidewalk, or I guess Safe Routes to School project in the Greenfield Plaza. There's one property owner that refused, another one that was gracious enough to donate the easement, so that was very nice. We'll send them a card for that to help us out. A lot of these, I mean, most of them are about $100. It's really for us to access a piece of their property and alter some of the driveways as those sidewalks get put in. It changes the grade in the area. I think the highest one on here is $470, but for the most part, they range about $100, $150 to up to $200. And it just depended on the impact that the proposed sidewalk getting to the school up there would actually do on the property. So the total amount out of the 34 is $5,335.
Thank you, David.
I would move the 34 temporary easements for project number TAPU-CO91, parens 131-81-91.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions for our engineer? I just have one brief one. In looking at this project, did you have a budget number or a placeholder for that $5,000, or was that not anticipated? I just don't recall offhand.
That just goes into our right-of-way acquisition line item in the budget. We don't have a set number because that's just too difficult to determine at the beginning of the year, but we try to factor in some sort of cushion in there for it.
And then my follow-up question to that is when do you anticipate beginning the project in earnest, or when, and then a completion date? Do you have an estimation for that?
The best estimation I can give at this moment is it has a letting date in November. Those times get set through the DOT letting process, so it could start anytime next calendar year.
Okay.
Just depends on what late start they give the project and how many working days they assign to it.
So November of 21 is the...
Yeah, so if the DOT assigns, say, 40 working days to the project, if it even is that, just as a number to estimate it on, they'll count back those 40 working days from the next November, and that would be the late start date they set.
Yep.
So it really is contingent upon how many working days the DOT feels the project should have.
Yep. I just wanted to give people a general idea of...
Yeah, it's the best we can say is next calendar year from spring through late summer at this point.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion or questions? Seeing none, roll call please.
Schultz.
Aye.
McIntyre. Aye. DeCook.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
6 and 9.
All right. Well, that awkward pause, silence time.
You can do number 6 if you want.
Yeah, let's do 6. That's good. Number 6, approve speed limit for 90th Avenue between 90th Lane and State Highway 92 with possible action. David?
This is about a 1.5-mile stretch of gravel road, just south of 92. And our office received some requests to look at possible blind driveway signs, so there's about 2 to 3 driveways on that stretch of roadway that have about a 40 or 45 mile per hour design speed based on sight distance, so they are blind. It's a dead end stretch, like I mentioned, and has that higher density of residential in that area. So as opposed to setting a lot of yellow warning type signs out there, we would rather just go ahead and set a speed limit with a couple signs to bring it back down to 40 miles per hour. Something that'll be more enforceable than a yellow warning sign.
I would move that we establish the speed limit for 90th Avenue between 90th Lane and State Highway 92 at 40 miles per hour.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Schultz.
Aye.
McIntyre. Aye. DeCook.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. All right, now I've got 6:11. So we are on schedule to go back to item number 3, public hearing for Warren County Ordinance, Chapter 9, registration and operation of all-terrain vehicles, ATVs, utility task vehicles, and off-road vehicles, UTVs, with possible action.
I would move we go to public hearing.
Second.
Tracy?
Schultz.
Aye.
McIntyre. Aye. DeCook.
Aye, we are now in public hearing. Dawn, would you start us off on this one?
Yes, thank you. Sorry I'm not present today. Back in, I want to say August or September, the county was approached with contact from Neil Isaacson of ATV enthusiasts regarding whether the county could have an ordinance about allowing ATVs and utility vehicles to use county roads. They had submitted an ordinance out of another county, Madison County, and that we set up a meeting to talk with several groups within the county, including law enforcement, county engineer, recorder's office, and I know I'm forgetting somebody and I apologize, to work on this ordinance and to come up with a proposed ordinance for the Board of Supervisors to consider. And I see David standing there, and I'm really glad because he can probably fill in some of the things I'm forgetting. One of the things that we were concerned about as a group was the amount of traffic we have in the northern part of the county and having utility vehicles and ATVs on some of those county roads. So that we wrote that ordinance with that in mind. David, if you'd like to speak to some of the issues that you had concerns about or to the ordinance, that would be great.
Yeah, to follow up on that, so as part of that process, we did some research, we reached out to other counties. We got about 14 responses or so. Kind of drew some ideas from those other counties, but a lot of those other counties don't have the population that we have. Some just covered by a one-page resolution, others are a few-page ordinance. This is about 17 or 18 pages, being that we're a higher populated county. And should this ever be approved, there's just, in my opinion, there'd be a greater number of restrictions with our higher traffic volumes. It's a draft version. It's something the public can comment on. We felt that we wanted to include as much information as possible so they actually have something to look at and comment on, and I'm just interested to see what type of feedback we get from them and anything we can do to, make any future edits if the board so chooses to move forward with this sort of ordinance in the county or denies it altogether.
I would also add that this is the first of three public hearings for this. The first one's today. The 2 remaining hearings will be the December 1st meeting, which is a morning meeting, and then the December 15th meeting, which is another evening meeting. We truly do want the public to weigh in on this. County's always going to look at this from a safety standpoint, and we understand that people are safe when they use these vehicles. We're concerned about the amount of traffic in the northern part. I'll stop talking and certainly just wait to hear.
Well, I suppose I can go first if it's open to public comment. My name is Noel Isaac. If somebody wants to give me a thumbs up, it's okay to talk.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. I suppose I'm kind of the spokesperson for us southern folks down here. Urban folks give me permission to talk on their behalf the other night, as well as a few on Facebook. But my name is Noel Isaac. My address is 22210 38th Avenue. I presented Dawn a draft a while back out of Webster County, and then some more information out of Madison County, and I thank them and for looking into this, as well as the engineer for his assistance to the matter. Currently, my use is 90% agricultural use. However, if I go down the same road without an ag purpose, I'm currently breaking the law, and I do so regularly. You know, it's only a quarter mile down the road to check on my neighbor, but he's 85, and I've always got a bucket in the back of my in the back of my buggy, so I can always justify it, but I don't want to have to justify it. I don't want to have to lie. My neighbors don't either. We have numerous side-by-sides down here in four-wheelers, and they're not out ripping around, tearing up the neighborhood. It's not a recreational means of transportation for us. It's a way of life. It's what we do every day, and it's a lot more convenient than jumping in the pickup truck. But we do what we have to get by. My neighbors can't legally come down here and cut firewood. They're not farmers. There's no ag purpose. They can drive a mile down the road and cut a load of firewood and go back in their buggy and be just fine. So I'm glad that you all are taking this serious. I have some oppositions to some of the things that I don't like, as well as all of my peers down here, is the required use of a helmet in this proposal. We think that it should be recommended, but we should not be required to do so. All of our buggies have seat belts and rollover protection in them, and most of them have windshields. Bicycles going down the road don't have to wear a helmet, but it's highly encouraged. Motorcycles can go 70 miles an hour down the interstate in Iowa with no helmet. It's a lot more dangerous. It's encouraged but not required. People riding a horse down the side of the road don't have to wear a helmet, or Amish buggies. I can go on and on. So all of us agree that it should be encouraged but not required. Second thing that I personally don't agree with is the limitation of the roads. I think it should be taken into consideration, but in other counties where they have much higher traffic, or they have a much higher threshold, the highways that have thousands of cars going down every day, they don't have that requirement. I was up in Jones County last week, and there was a farmer driving his UTV down the side of Highway 151, which is a split 4-lane road. That surprised me, but there was a path there. They have been doing that for a long time there. Whether it's legal or not, I don't know. But are farmers restricted on the roads that they can travel on? Me as a farmer, I can travel down the shoulder of G76 and go feed my cows, but the same UTV that I drive, I can't go out there as a matter of convenience. It has to have an ag purpose. I'm not going to be jumping on the interstate, and that's totally illegal. But this is all over the county, and to include, there's a lot of restricted gravel roads on that map. So I would ask that you reconsider that, and knowing that I can't drive down it without an ag purpose, but my neighbor can drive down that same road with an ag purpose. I understand your concerns, but I ask you to take that into consideration. I think there's going to be a lot of other people speak to that matter. In addition, I was asked to speak about the daytime only restrictions. A lot of raccoon hunters would like to go out and use theirs at nighttime. There are people that travel at night for recreational purposes. I personally don't. If it is, it's less than a quarter mile. But there are people that don't like the after-hours restrictions or daytime restrictions. In addition, there's people that do not like the speed restriction. They think that as long as you're operating within the designated 321 code of the state of Iowa, which is the traffic code of Iowa, they should be allowed to do so. And finally, there is a question about the additional permit/ID fee. It's not disclosed in the proposed ordinance, so if we could get a ballpark figure of what that's like, that's paragraph 910 or section 9.10. We would like to know what that is. And that's, let's see here. Oh, yeah, and we have runners, people jogging down the side of the highway in the travel portion of the lane, and that's a big danger too, but we're not outlawing that. So I ask that you consider the restrictions with those things in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You might want to speak on some of those, just how we came to those. I really appreciate that feedback, and like I mentioned, it is a very restrictive ordinance, because if we don't put it in there, you may not know to comment on it. Helmet use, would that be something you would think those under the age of 18, you would want to see wear a helmet, but then past that, age of 18, then it would be recommended or not required, or how do you feel about that?
Well, is it required in other counties? What are other counties doing?
I did not see the helmet
We
requirement in other
have
counties.
16-year-old farm kids, are constantly driving things without helmets already. I think it should be encouraged but not required.
Yeah.
But that's my personal opinion. I don't believe we need to make problems that don't exist at this point. If there becomes an issue, I think that that's something the county could address. I understand concerns of liability, and but the kids that, I would say that could be a reasonable, how much required between 16 and 18. I think that could be reasonable. I can't speak for everybody else, however.
Just a thought we had, and then on the limitation of roadways, you saw a lot of red lines on that map. I can just say, for informational purposes, we took the 2016 traffic counts. 2020 counts haven't come out quite yet for us. All we did, I guess, on that was pick every road above 150 vehicles per day. So that's up to the Board of Supervisors if this moves forward, whether or not we increase that number or get rid of it altogether. But that just gives you kind of some knowledge on that to know where we drew that map based on it. That's that 150 number. Whether we go up 200, 300, that's kind of up for discussion. Daytime only, I get what you're saying on that. I will comment on the 35 mile per hour speed restriction. I did see that one in about every ordinance we did receive throughout the research phase. And again, great comments. I just want to give you some background on how we came to those, and we do understand it is a very restrictive ordinance as it's written currently.
Oh, I totally get it, and I respect it, and I appreciate the time that you all put into this. It's somehow a 4-page thing that turned to 17. Once what happens, we give it to lawyers, right, Don?
Ouch.
The chairman's a lawyer.
I know, I wasn't going to piss him off.
Are there additional people from the public who would like to speak on this matter?
Yes, I would like to.
Thank you, sir. Can you please state your name and your address, please?
My name is Steve Eckert. I live at 340 North Washington Street in Hartford. The city of Hartford is just going through this process for the town itself. They just sent everything off to legal. Our council has approved everything as long as it's all good with legal. And I would suggest, I posted it out there on our Facebook page, and I can send it to somebody at the supervisors if they want the whole ordinance that they did here. They just followed the law the way it is. The vehicles will follow the speed limits. After nighttime, they'll run with their lights on, tail lights, and turning signals if they are equipped with that from the factory. No helmets are required. the state doesn't require a helmet for a motorcycle. They go 70 miles an hour down the interstate. I don't know why you would want one on a UTV that has a roof, a roll cage, seat belts. A UTV mine won't go over 15 miles an hour unless you have your seatbelt fastened. They're safer than a motorcycle. And you have the bicycles on the street. There's no laws regulating helmets on them. Up here, between Hartford and Carlisle on the Bartholomew properties, we hold the Heartland Challenge twice a year. It's a huge ATV event. We have a huge campground set up there. It would be nice for people to be able to use their UTVs on the gravel roads up here, to be able to go back and forth to the on the gravel roads to the stores to get gas and whatnot. I just think that the 17-page thing that came back out needs to be looked at. There's a lot of restrictions in there that I think are just over the top. I don't know. And I sure can forward the ordinance that Hartford just passed, as long as legal passes it. And that should happen this month.
Well, you know, Steve, this is Crystal McIntyre. The reason that all of that was put in there was so that we could at least address it, and so that people would be aware. So it's not that we're gonna pass it just like this, it's just so that we can give the public an idea of what could be in there, so.
Okay. Yes, and I appreciate the fact that the whole county's even looking at this. I think it's awesome. I know Madison just passed it, and Marion is looking at it. The city of Carlisle is looking at it also.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I guess I'll add a comment on the helmet aspect. I sort of agree with the concerns that have been voiced by our citizens on the helmet law, or the lack thereof for motorcycles. I get that. I also get that, is it a bait? I mean, I think the motorcycle lobby people have been, that comes up every session, because it's a safety concern when people have an accident on a motorcycle. My only comment on it would be, I'm probably inclined to agree with the citizens that are not in favor of that. I'm more of a, you take your personal responsibility yourself. If that's a decision that you make as an adult, I don't have an issue with it. Perhaps the middle ground is under the age of 18. My only comment is I certainly agree with the last gentleman who mentioned, we have roll cages in these, and I've ridden in a UTV. I think they're really helpful. I mean, they're useful. And there's seat belts and there's roll cages, and I get all that. But the ordinance is a little broader than just UTVs. It's also four-wheelers, and those certainly don't have the roll cages or some of the safety features like a seat belt. So maybe the middle ground, I don't know, I'm just off the cuff, but maybe the middle ground might be for minors and let adults make their own decision as they see fit. But there is a nuanced difference between four-wheelers and UTVs in my estimation.
Yeah, you could designate that difference. If you choose that you want minors to wear helmets, you could say, well, it's for ATVs only that have the saddle type seat, no seat belts and roll cages, and just leave it off altogether for the UTV. That's definitely an option.
And then I'll reiterate what my colleague Crystal said, is that I know that this probably came as a shock to some of you that we're looking for a 2-page document or a 3-page document. I get that. But I do think that everyone here is smart enough to understand that this is going to be a process, that no matter what, we're going to have three readings of this ordinance. And so I view this as a working document, as a draft document. And from our perspective, and at least from my perspective as the chair, it's better to have sort of everything laid out bare on the table, and then we can go through and hear comments from both sides, from everyone who has an interest in this, before we settle on a resolution. So I view it as a working document. I don't know where these two are at, but that's my guess is they're agreeing with that too. So, okay, who else do we have?
I'd also like to speak.
Sure. Can you
Thank
please
you.
state your name and your address, sir?
Sure. Jeremy Mowinkle, 2410 153rd Avenue, Carlisle.
Go ahead, sir.
First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for considering an ordinance. And also thank the folks that submitted it as even a possibility. I've ridden ATVs my entire life, from the time I was 5 years old until now. And as a northern Warren County resident, I think my main concern would be on the gravel road restrictions. So I don't know, you folks probably are aware of my address because the folks in my neighborhood spend a lot of time at meetings down there for road related issues. So when I pulled up the map and saw that Briggs was restricted, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way because it's kind of been deemed as a road that's just for local traffic and not really important enough to put a ton of money in as a maintenance item. So then when I find out it's not important enough to maintain it, but then I also cannot ride my ATV on it if this ordinance would happen to pass, that I have a hard time jiving those two things in my head. So I've ridden ATVs in 3 Iowa counties that have these ordinances. Actually, one of the counties, the county that I'm originally from, I believe was one of the first ones to pass an ordinance, which would be Allen Key County, which is not as populated as Warren County, but I would bet that there's probably 10 times as many ATVs registered in Allen Key County as there is in Warren County. I mean, there's organized rides up there probably 15 weekends a year by the ATV club and by other private organizations. They do them for fundraisers. They do all sorts of things. And the ATV ordinances really allowed that to happen because most of those rides, they actually ride on private property trails, but it's hard to connect the private property trails without riding on public gravel roads and occasionally a highway to get to the next gravel road. So I think that's one aspect that I don't even know if they anticipated it, but it's really it's kind of amazing how much the community up there has blossomed around the ATV rides and that sort of thing.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to speak as well, if that's okay.
Sure. Absolutely. Can you please state your name and your address, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Sean Streeter. I live at 16565 118th Avenue. That's here in Indianola. I gave Mr. Isaac permission to speak on my behalf. I did not know if I was going to make it tonight. Once again, I want to appreciate you guys working on this. I think all of us down here greatly appreciate that. The concerns that I have as well was the helmet ordinance. So putting that in there, I think a good compromise would be, minors if we had to have something like that. But I'm on the same page as just about everybody else. I've ridden motorcycles in this state for 14 years now, and I can go 70 miles an hour on the highways anywhere I want to go in here, and I don't have to have a helmet. I have the same UTV that's got the roll cage, the seat belts. It's a whole lot more safer than me jumping on the Harley and going down 65, 69. But once again, I totally understand if we have to have something in there. If it was for minors, I think that would be a good compromise. The other points that I wanted to bring up was the road restrictions as well. On the map that I seen, my road directly outside of my driveway when I get to the end of it would be a restricted road. If you're familiar with my address, we live in front of Lake Aquabi. So right where the pavement turns to gravel, my house is right there on the left-hand side. I can tell you almost every single, at least 2 or 3 times a week, we have cars, trucks, any kind of vehicle that just fly down our road well over the posted speed limit. It's something that we've all my neighbors have dealt with out here for a long time. And for them to say that, it's okay to go as fast as you want, and I know obviously they're breaking the law, but for them to tear up and down this road, but it's not okay for me to pull out of my driveway and take my UTV somewhere. I think the road restrictions definitely need a harder look. I understand the engineers kind of had their say in there, and I appreciate them explaining how they came about that. That makes a whole lot more sense now to me. For my use, it would be more of going down the road to check on my mom and dad. They live on Nevada Street, just on the other side of R63. And then my other parents, they live in New Virginia. So most of mine would be traveling to their place and helping them with farm equipment, things like that. At the way the law is laid out right now, technically I'm not in the guidelines if I say, you know, I'm going to help my mom with the horses in the pasture or something, because it's not my property. Where if it was my property, I would be able to legally do that. And then the last piece would be the riding during the daytime only. As you can see, it gets dark here at 5 o'clock at night, where if my mom or somebody calls and they would like help with something, my UTV has brake lights, headlights, turning signals. It's got everything a normal car does. It's even got a horn. So for me to be able to jump in there and run down the road to help her with whatever crazy project she has going on, it would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
It may be useful, I mentioned we set the bar at 150 vehicles per day, and that's what that map's based on. We could put together about a half dozen other maps at, say, 50 vehicle per day increments up from there, just see what they look like.
I would like to see that. I think
So we
that'd
could
be-
go, you know,
that'd be
150 up to 400, and then past 400 would be, you know, not restricted. So we'll put together those maps prior to the next meeting, and we can also post those so we can get a visual on how it changes based on those 50 vehicle per day increments. I think that'd be helpful.
We're gonna have less red on the map, would be my guess.
Exactly, we just set that baseline to start off, and we can get that information out there.
Understood. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak?
I would like to speak.
Sure. Can you please state your name and your address, please?
Shauna Isaac, 22210 38th Avenue in New Virginia.
Okay, thank you. What was your first name? Dawn.
So I think the majority of the points have definitely already been hit. I'm glad that someone has brought up the fact of road maintenance. Very much I'm in support of having this proposition legalized with the minimization of the points brought up by Noel. I would also like to, I guess, just kind of throw out there, even we'll call them semi-quasi-maintained roads, like the gravel roads that a lot of us who've been speaking live on, you know, get lower maintenance. It's just, it is what it is.
Lose ya?
Shauna, we can't hear you. She's still on and she's unmuted.
Can you type her a message and let her know that we can't hear her, please? We'll give it time. I'm in no rush.
Oh, she's gone.
I'm sorry, this is Jeremy Mowinkle, and I have one more question, if I may.
Shh, that's absolutely fine, sir.
Are the traffic counts, is that public information, or is that not something that's on a website somewhere or something?
Yeah, it's on the Iowa DOT website. It's under,
It is, okay.
if you search county maps, it should pull up for you.
Perfect, thank you.
I think when the 2020 counts, if they decide on a certain traffic volume, we need to revisit the map based on newer counts. But it is there on their website to view.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And we're gonna still see if we can get Ms. Isaac back, and just so the public knows, we certainly didn't exit out on her. We're trying. It might be her end, it might be our end, I don't know. But we'll try to get her back. In the meanwhile, I had a couple questions that I still am not, one of which has been addressed, which is traffic count and the amount of red on the map. I think that our engineer will go back and with increments of 50 vehicles, and we can take another look at that. We'll get that out to the public in advance of our next meeting, so we can have a better understanding of what the new map might look like. I'm intrigued to see what that does look like. The other questions that I still have, and I believe the first gentleman mentioned it, was respect to fees. Do we have a proposal on a registration fee? I don't know if that got answered, but.
I think that's still up in the air. That'd be a question for Polly, the recorder.
Okay.
But she was gonna look into if she were to charge a fee, what the staff time or, sticker costs and things of that were to cover that.
Okay.
Some counties don't require the fee, it's simply the IDNR registration, so that's another thing on the table.
Yeah, I'm not I don't wanna be, my point is, I don't wanna be punitive with fees. I feel like too often, entities are, look at fees as a way to raise revenue where maybe they don't need to or shouldn't. I also will tell the public that I'm also not interested in losing money or having staff time spend a great deal of time on it. I don't want it to be a loss leader for us. So maybe there's a nominal amount that's a compromise figure. But I'd like to hear from Polly before the next meeting so that we've got a better idea on that. So I'll follow up with her. And then my last question is probably specifically towards Dawn or our legal. Do we have some sort of a liability waiver? From my perspective, I'm live and let live sort of guy. And so if you are interested in riding a four-wheeler, or maybe we take speed restrictions off and just have them be to the speed limit of the gravel road, I don't personally have an issue with that. Whether you want to wear a helmet or don't want to wear a helmet and you're a legal adult, I don't have a great issue with that. But I do have an issue if we have accidents or injuries and people are coming back to the county as the taxpayers and saying, well, there was a rut on the road and my four-wheeler hit it and I flipped it at 45 or 50 and now I've broken my neck and can't walk, and then I will see the lawsuit, and then our taxpayers pay for it. So that is I will just be honest, I'm not just about numbers and money, but from my perspective, that really hinges on my decision making is what sort of protections, if any, does the county have in some sort of a waiver or some sort of a liability waiver. It might not be ironclad, but it would sure dissuade someone from being in an injury and then coming back to the county and saying, but it was your road, or I didn't know that it turned here, or whatever. I'm disinterested in hearing future lawsuits, and I understand that we're a relatively litigious society. Dawn, do you have any safeguards or thoughts on the same?
So Aaron, I haven't had a chance to look into that. I certainly will do so. I did check with the county's insurance carrier.
Mm-hmm.
The county definitely would be covered with this kind of an ordinance in place. That was one of my concerns. What is their liability coverage? But I will have to check into the question about a waiver. I don't have any idea off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't. Just off the cuff, I don't think it might not be ironclad where you sign the waiver when you get your registration and then you're forever barred from if there's gross negligence. I just want a heightened burden of proof so that we don't have, because I'm just being honest, I could foresee a scenario within the next 10 years if this passes in some form, and I suspect it will, that someone's going to be injured. And I don't take that lightly, but I'm not your dad. I don't make the decisions for you, and I'm live and let live sort of guy. I just don't want the taxpayers to end up on the hook for it, or our insurance carrier to have our rates go up because we have 3 or 4 accidents a year, and people see the pockets and think, well, that makes sense. So I would appreciate having some information on that. In the event that is a possibility, I'm just telling the public I would be even more laxed in some of those restrictions that are currently in there. So long as the waiver language is in there, then I'm even better with no helmets or nighttime riding or whatever. I don't want to have a scenario where the county in future years is catching 2 or 5 injury events a year where they're bringing suit. So.
Aaron, we did have a phone number joined. Shauna, is this you?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I apologize. I'm trying to get back in on my Zoom too, but I don't even know. You probably have already covered everything since I lost my connection. But really the big point I was going to say, in addition to the fact that for a lot of us, you know, it's a matter of the types of roads that we live in, you know, the quality of those roads. And I'm not faulting the county. We're a small county. We have a lower population. I totally understand that you have less money to work with, and it is what it is. And that's just another point to why an ordinance like this would be a benefit for a lot of us that don't live in a city. And that's of course by choice. We like the lifestyle, we like the country style that we live, we like being farmers, we like that. But it's just another, you know, access for us to get to different parts of our properties or to our neighbors or our families or whatever else. You know, I guess the other 2 points I was gonna bring up is regards to the 321 code. I don't see a point in reinventing the wheel necessarily, so I was just going to suggest, you know, why make this more restrictive than some of the other things we talked about, such as the motorcycle going down the interstate at 70 miles an hour with zero protection. And I would be very much interested in seeing what Hartford has going on, especially since they've kind of, you know, done a little bit of that work, and they would also fall within the area that we're talking about. And then my other question would be, you know, with regards to it, you don't have to answer it, but it would just be a question for us to consider is, you know, could a UTV cross a state highway, crossing from one road to the other, without necessarily using that highway for the travel purpose? You know, we wouldn't want to necessarily be in violation, or if we have to do zigzags or hop down, you know, a few hundred yards and such. Obviously, we're trying to take into account all the different types of uses. Again, keeping in mind that you have everything from runners to the Amish buggies to the motorcycles to everything else. So that was basically it. You probably covered it all though when I was trying to get back in. And I don't know if how that would work also with the state highway versus county. Sometimes they run together, sometimes they run separate, but that might also be something to talk about, because for some of us, that's literally the only option to get from one area to the other.
So section 9.03, I guess sentence or paragraph 10 does refer to the Iowa code and does allow a direct crossing of a state highway. So that is something that's doable per state code.
Okay.
And that just has, I mean, some stipulations on what you're required to do when you cross the highway, that enter at a 90-degree angle, look both ways, things of that nature. Kind of common sense stuff, but it does refer to Iowa code for that specific question.
Yeah, but if it specifically says it, our problem has never necessarily been the county people, it's been the state patrol, and we'll just leave it at that.
While I have some people from the public on that are very interested in this topic, would anyone be willing to speak on my liability question? I know that our legal team will dive further in that, but would anyone object to less restrictions in the event that you're signing a liability waiver saying, you know, if there's an injury or an accident absent some heightened burden of negligence or malfeasance on the county's part, is that something that you all would be comfortable doing or not?
I'll speak on that behalf if that's okay. Sean Streeter again.
Sure.
I for one would not object to that if it would bring down some of those restrictions. I'll kind of bring it back up to, it would be the same, I would treat it the same way as I do my motorcycle. If I was out acting up a fool, driving erratically and something happened, that's what we carry insurance for. That's not the kind of people that we want out on these UTVs and four-wheelers. Obviously, if I'm driving down the road and the road is completely malfunctioned to where it's an unavoidable accident, I for one carry full coverage insurance on my UTV. So that's something that I'm already covered on. I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are on that, but I would not object to you guys protecting your assets as well. I totally would understand that.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public that wouldn't mind addressing that question? I just think I try to be as transparent with people as possible. I don't want someone to watch this video and say, hey, I wonder what the cook really thinks. I'm telling you what I think. I'm happy to nix some of these restrictions and shrink 9 pages into 4 pages or whatever. It's just so long as if we've got some ability to protect the county. So what does anyone else think?
This is Jeremy Nowick. I'll speak again to that. Yeah, I don't necessarily have an issue with something like that. I would be curious to know, I mean, obviously other counties have dealt with this too. I'd be curious to know what the feedback was from them on something like that. I assume that you know what I'm saying? It's clearly it's been covered. It's just a matter of getting the information, right?
I think you're right, sir.
Yeah, and I'm also a big proponent of personal responsibilities, so I'd like to hear that.
No. Okay. That's what I had. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this matter?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Can you please state your name and your address?
Brenda Nye, 7620 115th Avenue, Indianola.
Yes. Okay.
And really, we just want to thank you, as well as the others have said, for having an ordinance and working through this process. And we're in support of many of the same comments that others made. The helmet was one of our main things that we noticed. I guess one suggestion could be considering just adding not equipped with roll bars. Therefore, anything that is equipped with a roll bar wouldn't need a helmet, just as another idea. And then I guess, as others have mentioned, the restriction on the roads is our concern as well.
And I think for your benefit, I think we'll have I anticipate that we'll have a new map for the next reading, or a couple maps. But just so the public knows, we had to have a starting point. And if we don't address it, if we don't have some metric to look at, then it's gonna be a lot of wasted time. So we started more restrictive than where I might anticipate we could end up. But I think we'll have a few different maps for the next meeting to consider. And Miss Brenda, are you there?
Yes, yes.
And your thoughts on my liability swap idea, which I don't know as though we can do, but I'm just thinking, would you have an issue signing something like that?
Well, we also do a lot of writing in Winneshiek County, and I don't believe that we've had to sign anything like that there. So, I mean, we consider looking at what you have, and I get the concern. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I feel like, based on what I've heard others say, that it does see that as much different than driving a small car, that if you hit a major rut and they come back to the county on something like that, I mean, maybe it's very similar. So, I don't know. I mean, they're much safer, as we've talked about, as far as having roll bars and all these safety features. So,
Thank you. We'll look into it. I'm not set on anything. I'm curious, so I'm asking.
Hey, this is Noel Isaac again. A question regarding, so the ATV and UTVs get the permit, but the drivers themselves have to be legal drivers. Not everybody driving. It could be a family member comes in from New York City to drive down the road. They're not the ones that sign the waiver. So how would this is something to consider? Not all operators are going to have signed that waiver.
Yep, that's a good point. Well, and I maybe I'm being over cautious. Maybe I'm being over protective. I understand that counties, I mean, they're not fully immune, but it's difficult to sue a state agency or a county because it's the taxpayers that are paying for it. And so there's usually some pretty good safeguards and protections. I'm just looking at, hey, if we're making the ordinance more lax or less restrictive, I'm looking to make sure that we're also keeping the county safe.
Yeah, I would recommend looking at whatever code that the agricultural use has to abide by.
Yeah.
And maybe apply those rules for consideration. So that's all from the Isaac claim, I think. I hope.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak?
I just have one question. My name is Sabrina Johnson. My address is 21049 S23 Highway, Lacona. My question is in regards to, I understand that you're going to look at the maps and you're going to look at the road usages. Do we know if all of the vehicles that have crossed those points are cars and trucks? Or are those also including tractors and UTVs that are used for agricultural use now?
Those counts count any type of vehicle.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a road strip that you
Yeah.
clip over it with a wheel and it clicks off a number, I think.
Yeah, they said 2 pneumatic tubes across from each other. They even can tell the rate of speed the vehicle's traveling, so they can tell if it's a really slow moving vehicle. I'm not sure all the formulas the DOT uses, but they could see a vehicle traveling 20 miles per hour on a 55-mile-per-hour road, and they may assume it's a tractor.
Yeah.
and
I think
take it out of the equation.
I think you're alluding to a good point, Ms. Johnson, and that's some of those road counts probably are tractors pulling in grain or planting or spraying and or UTVs used for ag purposes anyhow, so that's a good consideration.
So this is Sabrina again, and I don't want to speak for like anyone but me, but I think that someone had made a comment about not having roll bars or seat belts. So for example, an ATV, for me as a mom, it would be easier to get my 16-year-old who just now has a license, and I'm concerned with him just driving a regular vehicle, to have a helmet requirement, and that's just how I feel.
So you were supportive of a helmet requirement or not? I didn't quite catch that.
Underage.
Under age 18?
Correct.
Okay. Well, then you don't have to be the bad guy. You can say it's the law. It's not-
Exactly. That's what I'm looking for.
Just say it's Aaron's fault. That seems to work. Under 18. Okay. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, it looks like we have some work cut out for us between now and our next public hearing, which is set for December, which one?
December 1st.
December 1st, it's the first Tuesday, that's a morning meeting, and I think that we'll try to also all encourage the county to put out some information in advance of that, just so we're not dropping new maps on you all and some ideas on you all, day of the meeting. So I know that there's not a great deal of time, but we've got a little time with Thanksgiving. But I think we should be able to get something out and on our website prior to, so that should give you something to look at.
I would recommend we, as opposed to deleting them, we could do a strike through on some of those, so we know what's been commented on, so it'd be kind of an edited version with comments from this meeting.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yep.
We can do that.
I would move to go back to regular session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to exit public hearing and go back to regular session. Roll call, please.
Schultz.
Aye.
McIntyre.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
Now with the further readings, we don't have to go do anything else.
No.
They are
there's
already,
no action.
they are
Gotcha.
already set for
Gotcha.
further readings, so we will start on our homework. Which brings us to our next agenda item. And thank you all, and sincerely thank you, public, for coming on. I know that you all have busy lives, and you're kind of seeing how the sausage is made on something, but it's commendable that you're invested and that you care. And I appreciate your efforts to get us to this point, and I will pledge to you that we'll be diligent going forward to hopefully get something that most of us are comfortable with. So thank you. Okay, next one, we've got a 6:20, which I'm sure we're well past that. Public hearing for Warren County Ordinance Chapter 6, illegal dumping on publicly owned property with possible action.
I would move we go to a public hearing.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Schultz.
Aye.
McIntyre.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye, we are now in public hearing. Ms. Bowman, are you speaking on the illegal dumping ordinance?
Yes, with backup from David.
Perfect.
This ordinance was developed in response to a request from the supervisors to consider whether the county can have an ordinance that would put some teeth into when we are able to catch people who are dumping anything on county property, that we can go in and prosecute if necessary, and also try to make the people who are dumping responsible for the cleanup. So that's what this ordinance is meant to do. We have worked with county engineering, the sheriff's office. If I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. We also have talked with the supervisors. This is an ordinance that would allow the county to try to enforce some regulations regarding public dumping. It becomes a hazard when somebody dumps anything on the county roads, and then the county is responsible for cleaning it up because those roads have to be passable. David, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, yes, he would.
Illegal dumping.
Yeah, so we, at the request of Aaron, you might have mentioned, we kind of had some, I guess, work sessions with staff and came up with an ordinance. We do have a ordinance within the transportation ordinances that's improper use of right of way. So the change of that would be to point to this ordinance. It's not the same as a property owner doing something in a ditch on their own property. This is more targeted at someone coming in, from another county or even our own, and dumping on private property that isn't theirs. So that's how it's geared towards, because there is that unauthorized use of roadways ordinance, but this sets some more strict penalties for dumping on someone else's property.
Thank you.
If that helps.
Thank you.
This is also the first reading of 3 public hearings that are set. Same dates as the ATV utility vehicle dates. The 3rd will be the next one, or the 1st of December will be the next one, and then
The
I
15th.
lost the date.
The 15th.
No, 15th would be the 3rd hearing.
It's all right, Don. I think the 1st of December might just catch it. We'll see. Okay, we are in a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on the illegal dumping ordinance that's before us?
Hello, this is Noel Isaac again, and I want to support you guys in this because we too deal with the dumping here down in the south like they do up north, though it's not as prevalent. At the corner of 38th and Tyler, which is a level B road, we live at the end of the gravel where it turns to level B, about 200 yards due south of that intersection. We have been dealing with the dumping issue for many years, and we appreciate this coming to light. I know the engineers have done their best to get it cleaned up, but it's 2 or 3 times a year we have a major mess down there. And if you pass the previous ordinance, and maybe we can run them down and get some information to prosecute them.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this? Okay, I don't see anyone. I'll make a couple quick remarks, and I'll be tempered in my remarks. I foresee this moving forward. I foresee this as step 1 of a couple. I think that this gives us some avenues and a cause of action to better enforce what absolutely drives me nuts. But I also understand that some of this problem's not gonna be corrected absent some funding, absent some enforcement, absent some trail cams, absent some citizen involvement. And so I'm real pleased that this is moving forward. I think as far as I'm concerned that the amount of fine is as great as it can be. I will help zealously get this across the line, and then I will help in the future making sure that we can actually catch some people and make some examples, because I don't believe that absent that action that much is going to change. And so that's the plan. And the next reading will be on the December 1st at the morning meeting. So I will encourage some comment from the public, because I don't want people to think that I'm just out on an island here by myself. I know for a fact that there's a number of people that are very upset about what they have to deal with on a real regular basis, how they have to avoid construction materials or appliances or just refuse and garbage in the roads and in their right-of-ways, and it's something that I care about. So I'll encourage people to attend next time, so hopefully we can have some stories. I will say this, I did see on social media in the last week that someone in the northern part of the county has a very spectacular trail cam set up, and that person picked up a vehicle and a license plate, and someone sort of in the act of dumping a whole bunch of garbage there, and everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And so I won't speak for that couple, but my guess is, this is just a guess, but it's an educated guess, my guess is someone's going to be knocking on their door real soon. So hopefully we can have an example be made relatively shortly. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to that couple.
I would move, we go back to regular session.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Tracy?
Schultz.
Aye.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye. We are back in regular session. Seeing how we have additional readings for this ordinance set for December 1st, no action will be taken. Moves us to number 7, budget reports.
Okay, so we're looking at the month of October. We'll start with expenditures. We would anticipate being about 33.33%, a third of the way through our budget, through the end of October. We've got 5 departments that are running over that number. Of course, we've got the auditor's office. We know we were having on election costs right at the beginning of the year. And then our medical examiner and our juvenile probation, those are our favorites that we seem to amend every year. So I'm looking that those will need amendments as well this year. The county libraries, those are paid in 2 installments. The first one was paid in October, so those will show that at 50%. So they look like they're high, but they're really not. And then general services is our property and liability insurance. We pay that in July, so it always looks like it's hot until we get further on down the year. So not a lot of things in the expenditures that look like they're out of place. We're actually running, if you take out capital projects so that it's not kind of skewing our numbers, of we're only at 27% overall, because we've got a lot of departments that are coming in under on their expenditures thus far. We're not doing as much programming, we're not doing a lot of those things that we normally would have been doing due to Corona. So expenditures are looking good. Revenues, we have, again, year to date, we'd anticipate having about 33%. Overall, we're at 44.9, so 45%. And that's, of course, our tax revenues. Tax revenues came in September and October, so that piece of it's going to show us bumped up in revenues for a while. But overall, we've got some departments that are under. Treasurer's office, of course, when we did budgeting for those treasurer's office revenues was prior to Corona. And so those interest income that we had anticipated based on priors, we're not seeing those interest rates anymore. So that interest income is down, as well as driver's license fees. Interest is down about $21,000 from the prior year at this time, and driver's license fees are down $28,000 from last year at this time. The attorney's office, their fine fund reimbursements, once they meet that threshold, that's when those numbers will go up. So we're not seeing those numbers yet. The DHS LAE reimbursements are quarterly. DCAT, we're about 25,000 less, or 30,000 less than what we were last year at this time for DCAT, and that's the state's a little bit delayed in getting our payments to us on that DCAT reimbursement. If we look at conservation, their revenues are down. They're not doing their rentals, their programming, their those workshops. And then you've got capital projects, and we know that that's that additional bond for 911 that we anticipate doing here in a couple of months. So when we compare it to prior year, there's a lot of things that are a little bit different, but nothing that seems out of place. Certainly that treasurer's office, we're going to look at those revenues being down, but to note the recorder's office is making up for it because recorder's office is doing very well. Recording of instruments is up 45,000 from last year at this time. And real estate transfer tax is up 10,000 from last year at this time. So they're ticking far above what we would have anticipated at this time. So we've got some offsets that are working, so we're still showing really well on our revenues as well. Which leads us to our fund balances as of October. That big number in the general basic, it looks like 2.5 million. That one's because last year at this time, we had paid Motorola. We were, and then we paid the general fund back once we issued bonds. So last year, the fund balance was exceptionally low based on some of those expenses, as well as the fact that we ended the fiscal year up about 377,000. We did have tax dollar increase, so we're seeing those increases because we do have those tax revenues that have come through now September and October. So that's why that number looks like it's so far further ahead than what it should be. But overall, all of the fund balances are looking well, and nothing's of concerning at this time. So, does the board have any questions for me? I'm having a hard time keeping my mask on when I talk.
Okay, well done. Okay, so we have budget reports. Number 8 is receive and file reports, Recorder, Humane Society, Veterans Affairs, and General Assistance. Do we have a motion?
I move that we receive and file those 4 reports.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Schultz,
Aye.
McIntyre,
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye, motion carries. All right, number 9, Supervisors Report. Who would like to go first?
I can.
Sure, sir.
You know, I don't think, I was trying to think today, I don't think I had any regular committee meetings since the November 4th, 2020 meeting, so no report.
Okay. Crystal?
I attended through online webinar, Living and Aging in Iowa, a focus on Native American, Asian Pacific Islander, and African American communities. 2, we had a Board of Supervisors special election canvass. The ISAC Board RIC meeting, the Warren County Joint 911 Service Board meeting, and then an executive board meeting for 911. Met with the engineer concerning roads and ATV ordinance, 7 employee evaluation, and answered calls and emails of complaints. General.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll keep it real brief. Also attended the special canvass. Just for the public's benefit, I want the public to understand something. We had an almost 85% participation rate in Warren County of registered voters. And my colleague Doug had mentioned that was a record. And I don't know as though I heard the next closest year, I anticipate it was 2016, but it was, and that might have been 80 or 79%. 78.
Yeah.
But 78 to 85, that is a phenomenal participation rate. That means that regardless of who you voted for or why you voted for whoever, people are engaged and active and getting out and voting. So kudos to the county for those that voted in person or voted absentee. I will also give another plug to our auditor's office for the early drive-in voting. You know, our county had their numbers in really quickly for both the state, and then as we still have states that are not officially certified or called, it makes me quite proud that Iowa, I guess there is a congressional race in 2A that's tight, but it's tight because it's tight. It's not tight because every county auditor down there messed it up. So, nice job. Attended employee reviews. For the public's benefit, I think I've touched on this a few times in the past, but the Board of Supervisors here in Warren County has a number of departments that are sort of fall under the purview of the board, and then there are elected offices. And so we've sort of had that discussion in the past between what our role is with an elected office versus what our role is with maintenance or the engineers department or IT or HR or Betsy or whatever. And so there is a big difference in how those are handled. At budget time, we all sort of come back together, which will be coming up in probably February of next year. January, we'll get a jump start on it. And so at those meetings, that's really the time where, in my short tenure here of about 2 years, I don't see a lot of people at those meetings. And I want the public to understand that it is those budgetary meetings that the budgets are set. And so if you have questions or concerns, or you think that some department is woefully underfunded, or you have issues, that is really the time. I mean, I can't stress that enough. That is the time to come to the meeting, express your thoughts. We will not silence you. You will be able to, we want to hear from you. But in those meetings, that's the chance. But today, Crystal noted that we had employee reviews. So we had, I think it was 8. We put 8 of them in before this meeting, and so I'm a bit tired. But I want the public to know that it's my professional take, as well as personal experience, that you have some phenomenal employees at the county. You have a lot of people pulling in a positive direction and doing a really good job. That was my overall takeaway from those 8 employee reviews. And I think that we maybe don't say that very often or enough, but it's true. So kudos to those department heads. And finally, I will note that one of the employee reviews that we did today was with Jodine from our health director here, as well as nutrition director. And so we had a pretty candid discussion. I was curious as to her thoughts, as I'm sure they were too, about COVID-19 and the virus spread in the county. And so I would just encourage you to make responsible choices where you can and be safe. As she has indicated, those numbers are up and up, not just in Warren County, but statewide. So please try to be responsible in your actions. So that's all I have. Number 10 is public input. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment? Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual. The board will not take any action on the comments due to the requirements of the open meetings law, but may do so in the future. No public input will be allowed for any of today's agenda items.
I see that online.
Dawn, do you have something you would like to tell us?
Nope.
Okay. Our next meeting date will be December 1, 2021 at 9:30 a.m. in the morning. That is the first Tuesday of December. That is our morning.
Not 2021,
2020.
You can't skip a whole year, Aaron.
That's like,
You are tired.
I feel like I'm the guy from Anchorman who just reads whatever's on the prompter. 2020. We're not quite there yet. We want
Gotta
to
get you home.
Yeah, we want to be in 2021. We're not quite there yet. 9:30 a.m. Is our next meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Schultz.
Aye.
McIntyre. DeCook.
Aye. Thank you all for your time. Have a good night. Drive safe.